Welcome into a Tuesday, March 3rd edition of Daily Faceoff live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube. And as always, looking for your inbox questions, either for us or for Jeff Merrick from The Sheet, who will be our big guest today, joining us in about 15 minutes time. The show, as always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Tyler Yaremchuk, Carter Hutton with ya. Hutz, how you doing? What's on the TV today?
Stanley Cup.
Okay.
Stanley Cup there. It's kind of blurry though.
simple.
I don't know. I need an IT guy, a tech guy. I need something. And then there's also a Stanley Cup ring too. Zach Phillips actually just messaged me saying he liked the Stanley Cup in the background. I said, that's a Stanley Cup ring there as well. That's called getting an A on a group project when you didn't do anything, boys.
I was going to say, you ate a lot of press box popcorn? You were in the press box for all the games though, right?
I was, yeah. We actually sat with the brass. So the four Black Aces, it was me, Jimmy Hayes, Brandon Peary, and Adam Clendenning. And we would actually bet on who was going to score. So we would take players from each team. So we're playing the Wings in the first series, and Datsuk would score. And if you had him for $20, you didn't want to celebrate because that was where we were at in our career. But we wanted to win it. It was a lot of fun, and we got kind of to be involved in everything. Jonathan Taves did a hell of a job with that.
Well, I was going to say, did you, as a Black Ace and not just a healthy scratch, did you get to do the equipment on when you went out to, raise the cup?
No equipment on. We went down, we were on the ice, and then we went in the room, and we were they were partying. I remember just standing in our suits in the dressing room, and we just had a beer, and guys, we knew them all. So they were coming over spraying champagne in our face. It was a lot of fun, but we didn't get to celebrate like we had won the cup. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. I always love hearing stories like that. Like I said, Jeff Merrick is going to be our guest later on today. We also have a trade to talk about, but before we get into that news, and of course, shout out to our new trade ticker that you see at the bottom of the screen, courtesy of Puckpedia. Before we get to the trade news from yesterday, let's talk about some of the hockey from last night, Hutz. It was a pretty interesting night around the NHL. The Columbus Blue Jackets almost blowing a 3-0 lead to the New York Rangers. That was almost disaster zone for Columbus, but they save it with an OT win. The Dallas Stars also getting their 9th win in a row. They're heating up at a pretty interesting time.
Yeah, honestly, a huge win last night. And I think the fact of this Dallas Stars team, they've quietly been winning hockey games, right? And I think that's the important factor in a division that is absolutely loaded. There's been so much talk about what Colorado has and what Minnesota has, and Dallas keeps chipping away. And Jim Nill has some up his sleeve, right? Trade deadline is looming. And something that's important for me is the second best power play in the league, which has been awesome, right? They're buzzing at 30.1%. And Heiskanen, he's got a 6-game point streak going. And this is him playing 25 minutes a night on average, right? This guy's an absolute workhorse. And for a lot of people that don't remember, he missed last year's first series against Colorado, and he came back, and he's trying to catch a moving train during the playoffs in that Jets series. And he played throughout that. He ended up playing in the Oilers series, but him staying healthy is going to be an integral piece when you look at what he can bring to this Dallas Stars team. So that's a factor, I think, down the stretch in this loaded Central Division, that he can be this X factor for this team, Ty.
Yeah, I think that's a good point on Heiskanen. It was game 3 or game 4 of that Winnipeg series when they finally got him back, and you touched on it. It's so difficult to jump back in the middle of a playoff run. We're going to do our deadline matchmaker in a little bit, but Dallas is a team who, whether it's Kadri, Trocheck, list whatever centermen are out there on the market, Jim Nill and the Dallas Stars are going to be firmly in those conversations. And again, that record, it speaks for itself. To have points in 46 games already this season, 40, 60 or 60 games, that's just an unbelievable clip. And it's just a damn shame that they're in the division that they're in, because if they were in any other division in the NHL, they'd be leading that division. Instead, they're in a dogfight to even have home ice advantage in round 1 of the playoffs, which is just absolutely wild. Another team in the West who I wanted to give some love to, because I was wrong about them yesterday in our daily bets, the Seattle Kraken taking down the Carolina Hurricanes last night. Another win for the Kraken. They're 7-3-0 in their last 10. With that victory, they move into one of those divisional spots in the Pacific Division and bump down the Edmonton Oilers. Reports yesterday that the Seattle Kraken are going to be holding on to all of their pending UFAs ahead of the deadline. They want to add Hutts.
Yeah, and I think that's something that where they're at as a team. I think when you look at the early success of where this team went, right? They came in, they made it to the playoffs. There was a little bit of lack of superstar, but I think this is what they're trying to address at this point, right? They're getting the goaltending and they have the team concept in place. Now it's a little bit of pieces that they can add. And I think Jason Botterill as a general manager is going to be active. I think he's had a bit of a learning curve when you look at his time in Buffalo and where he's at with Ron Francis in Seattle. They have a good template to go in. And I also believe that there's a lot of confidence in the fact that look at this Pacific Division, right? It is just lackluster when it comes to points and it comes to production and where you're at. So if it's going to be Utah, it's going to add, and Anaheim might push. There's talk of San Jose trying to add some pieces. You can't just sit there status quo, because this might be your easiest year to get into the playoffs and to push. And this is coming from a city that has the Seattle Seahawks NFL champions. They have the Seattle Mariners, who went right to the American League Championship. This is a city that's got a lot of sports. So if you're not going to win, I don't think you're going to draw people into a newer franchise. I think that's important for Seattle.
Well, and this is now like way bigger picture, but like you even wondered in Seattle, like, oh man, if the NBA comes back and that Kraken team is an afterthought in that market, it could get crowded pretty quick. But 67 points on the year, that's good for third in the Pacific Division. That wouldn't have you in a playoff spot in any other division or in one of those top three spots in any other division in the league, which is absolutely insane to see how weak that Pacific Division is. But along those lines, maybe that's why the Edmonton Oilers felt like they could take a bit of a leap yesterday, and they make a move, acquiring Connor Murphy from the Chicago Blackhawks. They get Murphy retained from $4.4 million down to $2.2 million. They send the Chicago Blackhawks a 2028 second-round pick back in the deal. On the surface, I think this is a win. It's maybe it's not a sexy name. It's a bit of an unspectacular move, if you want to call it that, but it fills a clear need for the Edmonton Oilers, who have really struggled to keep pucks out of their net. Huts. Over that 3-game California road trip, the Oilers scored 18 goals in the 3 games and only came out of there with 1 win, only 2 points in those 3 games. They had to get better at keeping pucks out of their net, and Connor Murphy, by all the metrics and analytics you look at, he's one of those guys that's very good at just being a defenseman. So for the Oilers, it's not a big cost, but you fill what I would call a pretty big need in your top 4.
Yeah, I was able to jump on when you're doing a live breakdown on your show yesterday on Oilers Nation Every Day, and I thought that was what I took away from it, was the fact that he can defend well in his end, right? Like, yes, he's not great off entries, and there's different analytics where it's going to break down more, but what do the Oilers need? They need a little bit more of a predictable defensive zone, because at the end of the day, we can sit here and we can blame the goaltending. You can go back to Stuart Skinner of the past. At some point, there's got to be a reflection of how this team defends and where they are. And I think this is a key piece where he understands his role and the fact he's a 32-year-old, right? Like, you're not thrusting him into a situation where it can be overwhelming playing with McDavid, Draisaitl in this market that's going to be so demanding. You're mature in your ways. At 32, for the amount of games, he's got 800 games in the league. This is a great situation for Connor Murphy, getting out of Chicago, where, by the time Chicago starts to win hockey games, he's probably going to be a little too long in the tooth to really have an impact there. So this is great trade for him, and I think he's going to be rejuvenated being in a situation where he can play a role on a Stanley Cup contending team and play within himself. Nothing is expected other than more just play your game, Connor. You're not expected to do anything else.
This is probably more of a question for Jeff Merrick, but what could be next for the Oilers? With Matthias Janmark on LTIR, they've done some roster rejigging over the last couple of days, including Andrew Mangiapane clearing waivers yesterday. They now have $200,000 in cap space, so anything that they do, it either to try and improve that forward group, it's either going to involve Andrew Mangiapane going out the door, or it's going to be for a player who's making less than, I think it's $1.1 million is kind of the number that they're working with right now. So fully expect Stan Bowman to keep going, and that's a question we'll throw Jeff Merrick's way in a few minutes when he pops on. But Huts, we wanted to do kick off our Deadline Matchmaker series today. We'll do the top 5 names on the board today. Tomorrow, we'll do names 6 through 10 on Matt Larkin's trade targets board. So let's get things going here. The first player we have up is the guy who is number 1 on the list. You see him at number 1 on the ticker at the bottom of your screen as well, and it's Blake Coleman of the Calgary Flames. Now, what makes Coleman interesting? He's got a Stanley Cup ring. He's a guy who I think can kind of move up and down a lineup. If you need him to put in some offense on the second line, if you want him to play more of a checking role on the third line, like, he can do all of that. He also comes with a year of term, $4.9 million. Who did you have as your matchmaking fit for Blake Coleman?
I had the Montreal Canadiens just because I like the fact that he's been tied to him a little bit, and I think he can play in the top 9. There's that veteran leadership, which I think they need as a younger team with, like, I guess tempered expectations. He can come in and be a good fit with his 2 Stanley Cup rings and what he's been able to do. So, at 34 years old, $4.9 million. And the other key factor I saw in this is family is staying down in Texas. They're expecting their 4th child, right? So they have 3. They went back on Olympic break and they're staying there. So like, I think full expectations are he knows he's going to be moved. Why wouldn't you want to move out somewhere where you have a chance to be in a better role and try to help this team win? So I like Montreal, and the fact that, like, you know, you're staying somewhere in Canada, you've been in this market, and you know how much it means to a Canadian city to try to win.
That's an interesting one. My pushback on that would be, and he's a better player than these two guys, so maybe it doesn't matter, but like, is he too similar to what you already have in your top 9 with Gallagher and Anderson? Do you maybe already have a couple of Blake Colemans or guys who fill that role? Like, is there a spot for him? But I do like that he'd give their top 9 a bit more jam. The Texas idea is interesting, though, that you just brought that up. Like, is Dallas a team that would have interest in Blake Coleman? But I think it was Knockout Panda in the chat who said Dallas has to worry about money beyond this year in any deal that they do. And I do wonder if that $4.9 million on the books for next year would be a problem for Coleman. I went with a sort of reunion for Coleman. I went with Tampa Bay as an option. They have $3.1 million in cap space right now, but they're running with 8 defensemen and 13 forwards on their roster. They could just slide a couple of guys down to the minors, and they would have enough money to fit in Blake Coleman's contract without any sort of retention. I think, again, that's a piece that could move up and down their lineup. He's familiar with John Cooper and the core in Tampa. I like Tampa Bay for Blake Coleman. Next up on our board is Robert Thomas, and it's a name we talked about yesterday, potentially being a fit for Utah. And just the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't really think of anyone other than Utah. So I went with Utah as my fit for Robert Thomas. I think they got enough young pieces that they could very easily put together a package that it'd be hard for St. Louis to say no to. Who did you have as your fit for Robert Thomas?
Yeah, I matched you on this one too. I was trying to differentiate from you from majority of them, but like for this one, I think where there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's a good chance possibly he goes there. If not, he stays put, right? Because this is a very valuable player. It will be interesting because I know next year Utah has 3 second rounders and their first. Like maybe they move off a trade because they have a lot of prospects, but what comes back? We talked about Barrett Hayton the other day, you know, his depth, the guy that went 5th overall in the first round, who really has produced, but not to expectations of where they thought he would be. You know, and that being said, he's at 8.1 through 2030-31 season. Like that's a pretty good cap hit for a guy who has 80 to 100 point potential consistently every year. So you either hold on to him and you build around him, or maybe Utah puts together a great enough package that the Armstrongs make a deal.
This is purely like hypothetical GM stuff, but like, man, if you're St. Louis and they're dangling a Tisha Ginla and a draft pick in front of you, like, and you're the Blues heading towards maybe a soft rebuild or a retool, whatever word they're using, that's hard to say no to. Next name on the board, Vincent Trocheck. I see Joe in the YouTube chat says Trocheck to Detroit, and I agree with that one. I had the Detroit Red Wings as my pick. I think Stevie Y is going to angle more towards the veteran leadership side of things, someone who can slot right below Dylan Larkin and eat up some tough matchups. Trocheck's that guy. Who did you have as your fit for Trocheck?
Okay, well, so everyone knows Ty got to pick his teams first, so I had to counteract that, and I went with Carolina just because he talked about staying on the East. And again, when you look at an Eastern Conference where it seems like it's Tampa Bay and Carolina's to win, you know, is that a potential for him to go there, a team that he can add some depth and a team that isn't really great up the middle, right? Sebastian Aho carries a lot of that weight. Maybe he can help out in that sense. And he's a two-way player that can complement anybody on that team. He can play up and down your lineup. He can get points. He can penalty kill. He can kind of do it all. I think he fits the mold of what Ron Brindamore wants. Again, I just don't know if he has that offensive upside to really push Carolina over the top, but he's staying on the East Coast, so that's why we're in Carolina.
Who did you have as your fit for Nazem Kadri? Let's keep the ball rolling here.
Nazem Kadri was a pick that I think for him, when I look at Nazem Kadri, is he a guy that goes down to Dallas, right? I think Dallas potentially is a team where they add a piece like Kadri. And obviously, if they can make the numbers work and where it's at, I know they're limited to what they can do. They have the Jason Robertson contract looming. You know, where does that become? What I do love about this is the fact that Dallas is always there. I feel like Jim Nill always has a little bit of something up his sleeve, and he continually creates good teams. And I think for Nazem Kadri, if it's not Dallas, then it's Colorado, because this guy wants to win, and I think he knows that the Central Division is where the Stanley Cup's coming through this year. Yeah,
I think the cop-out answer for Kadri is just to be like, he's going somewhere in the Central Division. I don't know which one of those three. Like Willie says, Tyler hates Minnesota. I don't hate Minnesota. I just can't see Minnesota having the assets to do another big trade like that. So I don't know if I'm fully in on that. Name number 5 on the board was Dougie Hamilton. Hutz, and I went cheeky in my response. I said New Jersey. I just don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think the contract's too hard to move in season. I'm not sure. The no trade clause complicates things. I think Dougie Hamilton is a name for the summer, but did you have someone who you think could maybe get him before the deadline?
I just went off of the board a little bit. I know he nixed a trade in the summer to the San Jose Sharks, but I said San Jose because they have a ton of money to give to him. If they could take his full contract, I think it's a simple deal, like where maybe he goes there. And the fact that he just watched Macklin Celebrini at the Olympics be the story, right? And maybe you go there and you help them out. You get to go to California. It's a pretty good deal. They could swallow his $9 million. Like you look at their decor, the only defenseman that's really signed, they have Sam Dickinson on his entry-level contract. Then it's Dmitry Orlov, and he has 1 year left. Everybody else is a UFA. Like, if he goes there in 2 years, it's not a big deal. It doesn't, like, mortgage their whole future. So I think it could be interesting just for him to get a change of scenery because obviously it hasn't gone the way as planned in New Jersey.
Let's keep this trade conversation going. Again, the deadline is just a couple of days away. Reminder, we'll have our Daily Faceoff trade deadline show hosted by Jeff Merrick coming up this Friday. The whole crew's going to be together. I think yesterday there was like 9 of us who were all involved in the show, so it's going to be a banger. Starts at 11 a.m. Eastern. Excited for that on Friday. But let's get to Jeff Merrick. He's brought to you by Tim Hortons. If you feel something exciting in the air, that's because roll-up season is officially back. You can still play on the cup while supplies last, but don't forget to also play on the Tim's app, which means you have more chances to win just by doing what you already do, and that's get Tim Hortons. Look at this. I got a nice little medium regular on my way into work today. When I'm done that, I'm hoping to win a car, Carter. But roll-up season is back and only at Tim's. Jeff Merrick from The Sheet joins us as he does every Tuesday. Jeff, we were just doing our Deadline Matchmaker segment. Is there a name in the top 10 or a name that you see come across the board here on our trade ticker and you go, ooh, there's one fit I really like for that guy?
Ooh. I think we're all wondering about Robert Thomas. I've wondered about and lobbied for because it makes a lot of sense, and this team probably needs to be in this conversation for this player, given that they're all of a sudden in third place in the Pacific, and that's the Seattle Kraken. You know, they have the draft picks to give. They have the prospects to give as well. I would imagine there'd have to be a roster player included. If you're Seattle and you're having a hard time scoring goals, as we all know, Jason Gregor's talked about this on DFO Rundown all season long, you have a chance to get someone like Robert Thomas, one of the premier playmakers in the NHL. You go for it. But really, my answer might be Montreal for Robert Thomas. You look at the Montreal Canadiens, they're done with first rounders. Okay, their draft work is all done. Okay, because their first round draft picks now are going to be lower half. Okay, so all the work has been done, and you got to start thinking, okay, so what type of package could the Montreal Canadiens put together to get Robert Thomas? And can you imagine for 1 second going up the gut into the playoffs with Nick Suzuki and Robert Thomas? Holy smokes, you're looking we're talking like Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci here. Okay, that's what we're looking at here. So you'd think to yourself, so what do the St. Louis Blues need, right? I'm sure in a lot of these deals, with Utah, I'm sure they're asking for Desnoyers and Iginla and Simashev, these types of high-end prospect guys. But if you're St. Louis, Pierre-Doug Armstrong, soon to be Alex Steen, you want young right shot D. That's what you need, right? That's why they made the trade in the offseason to bring in Logan Mailloux. They want young right shot D. So you look at someone like David Reinbacher. You'd look at the Bryce Pickford kid who's shooting the lights out in Medicine Hat right now. Guy's got 70 points as a right shot D. So it's a combination. Michael Hage, I would imagine, would have to be in that one, first round draft pick from a couple of years ago. So that's what we're kind of looking at here if it's the Montreal Canadiens. So Utah, Seattle, Montreal, those would be the three that I jump out at. And then even having said that, with Montreal, they're still probably going to need to do something with their goaltending help here, with their goaltending. They need some help there. we've heard Bobrovsky's name, etc. But that's what I'd be looking at for Robert Thomas out of the gate.
Yeah, Jeff, and then you look at that team, like if they were to get Robert Thomas, that's through 29-30. They have like 6 or 7 stars wrapped up, all under like in the 9s to like 6s. It's a pretty unbelievable structure. Now, there was a trade yesterday. Connor Murphy goes to the Edmonton Oilers, 2nd-round pick. They start to move the process. What else is next for the Edmonton Oilers as we stay on the Pacific and we see how wide open it is?
A couple of things. One, the thing that jumped out at me right away when I saw the deal was help the PK. Like right away, like the Oilers penalty kill needs some help, and that's like Connor Murphy was a big part of the Chicago Blackhawks PK, like he really was, and that's a good penalty kill. So right away I see that's where that helps. Edmonton, I'm going to really sort of sit on the fence here. I can see Edmonton both just picking around the edges and then also doing something massive. And this time of year, you got to really be careful about how you interpret things. And what you think about what you see. But I have a lot of respect for Brian Lawton, and I've worked with Lots for a lot of years at Sportsnet. We've always been in touch. But Lawton sent out, I don't know if you guys saw it, Lawton yesterday sent out a tweet. I think Murphy is the calm before the storm for the Edmonton Oilers. I really do wonder if it's because I've been under the impression. Oh, and by the way, that's another American that goes to Edmonton as Stan Bowman tries to USA hockey this thing up. Don't think that that's lost, Tyler, on your boy out east here. Yeah. that the Edmonton Oilers are trying to USA it up. But nonetheless, I joke. I'm really starting to wonder now if they end up doing something really big. Pierre Maguire brought up a good point on the sheet yesterday, and he said, when he was with, the vibe around, and he's back working doing radio analysis with the Penguins, but the whole time he's been with the Pittsburgh Penguins previous, certainly when Bowman was there, as long as Mario Lemieux was there, right, and then later, as long as Sidney Crosby and Malkin were there, Penguins were always going for it. There were no even small retreat years. Every year you load up and you go for it. And he's very much of the belief that if you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, it doesn't matter if maybe strategically you might want to keep your powder dry. You're obliged when you have those players to go for it. So as Friday approaches now, I'm really getting warmer to the idea that the team we all might be talking about by the time the deadline rolls around on Friday are the Edmonton Oilers. And maybe it's that blockbuster that no one sees coming. Or maybe it's someone this isn't a report. This is just conversation leading up to the deadline on a Tuesday. So they make the move for Murphy yesterday. Do they look at doing something with Darnell Nurse now? Would that be a bomb enough for Friday? Oh, yeah, it would. Could that be the next shoe to drop here? Because the closer this thing gets to Friday, so a lot of people talking about Edmonton doing something significant here. So that one, again, to me, makes a lot of sense. And as you guys were just pointing out, Jason Gregor had the great stat on the Rundown show that we recorded on Sunday. November 20th was the last time the Vegas Golden Knights beat a playoff team. November 20th was the last time the Vegas Golden Knights beat a playoff team, and they're first in the Pacific. This thing's wide open. If the goal, again, everything's about expectations. If the expectation for the Oilers is you have to make the conference final, I think that's legitimate. Mm-hmm. There's a legitimate path here for that to happen, considering what's happening. Anaheim might be a little too young. Vegas, who knows? Seattle is a who knows team. If you're the Edmonton Oilers, you're saying to yourself, listen, get to the conference final and all bets are off. The path is there for the Oilers. So maybe they do something massive.
The Vegas Golden Knights have still lost more games than they've won this year.
I know. And they're first.
And they're first. It's crazy. But I think that does, again, not to make this a whole Oilers thing, but if you're Edmonton, you sit there and go, you know what? If we can go 8-2 in our next 10 here, all of a sudden we're second or third in the division, and we would go Seattle, Vegas through the first 2 rounds. Why wouldn't you load up? You could manhandle Seattle in a playoff series.
There was I'm old enough, Tyler, to remember the Norris division of the 80s, where if you got 60 points, you made the playoffs. Now, no one's suggesting all you need is 60 points to make the playoffs anymore, but this is the closest thing I've seen to it, right? This Pacific division, the path is there. If you just, load up, make a couple of tweaks as well at the same time, I don't know, like the chance right here for the Oilers to get through. If you figure that everyone in the Central is just going to maul each other for a couple of rounds here, the path could be there again. Path could be there again for the Oilers one more time if they make the right decisions by Friday. And I do wonder about a Whopper. I really do.
Jeff, now, like, obviously the hockey fishbowl, you're in it. What's been going on in Toronto? Like,
oh, it's calm.
It's tough. I love Craig Berube. Like, means a lot to me. He's my assistant in St. Louis. I love Chief. Everything that's going. Like, what do they do? Is it just pull the pin now? Like, is it everything goes? Like, I know Bobby McMahon's name's been thrown around a ton. Like, do they sign him, keep him? There's so many moving parts. Is it all holds bar here? Like, everything goes, or what do they do?
I don't know if they do that right now, but considering that this is a team that, much like every other team who's in a situation like this, you're not going to be able to buy yourself out of your problems on July 1st, right? Like, there was a feeling that come July 1st, oh yeah, look at McDavid's going to be available, and Kyle Connor's going to be available, and Adrian Kempe is going to be available, and all these, and then they all just re-signed. And now we're looking at, the Alex Tuch derby. So they're not going to be able to do anything significant in the offseason. All of the Maple Leafs can do, if they want to stay relevant now, I'm not even talking about a rebuild yet. If they want to stay relevant now, the only way they can do it is to trade their way into it. There's no saviors coming from the Marlies. There's no saviors coming from their draft picks whatsoever. The only thing they can do is trade their way back into relevance. I don't think it would be a whopper by trade deadline. I could be wrong. Like, who knows if they're looking at doing something with Morgan Rielly. The marriage of Morgan Rielly and Craig Berube has not been a good fit. Like, the way that Morgan Rielly plays is not how Craig Berube wants his defenseman to play. Carter. Like, he wants his D around the net, man. Right? And Morgan Rielly, his game has always been gallop, gallop, gallop. Like, that's not a fit. So do the Maple Leafs do something with Morgan Rielly now? I don't know that they've even had the conversation with him to even position that for Friday. Or do they say, you know what, it's the usual candidates. It's Lawton, it's Bobby McMahon, maybe it's Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's been their best defenseman. So maybe they go, but make no mistake about it, Toronto will do something. I think this is going to be in two stages. One, there's going to be something by deadline, and then two, probably something of more significance at the draft and then in free agency. But make no mistake about it, these first three games after the break, they fell right on their face against the Bolts and then the Panthers. And then at home, coming back, the Ottawa Senators had their way with them Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, for the whole country to see. This team is done. They're done.
Last one I got for you. If we're sitting there on Friday doing our show and we're going to be stunned, like truly stunned, jaw on the floor, is there one situation you're watching? Obviously, the Spit and Chicklets guys have their Brady Tkachuk and Jason Robertson thing, and like that's my favorite. Like that's what I loved as a kid, was like really good speculation. But like, to be fair, I was chatting with Brent Wallace earlier this morning on another one of our shows here in Edmonton, and he brought it up. I didn't even ask. He said like, this Brady Tkachuk thing isn't a nothing burger story here in Ottawa. Like, is it Tkachuk that could be the stunner? Is there another situation you're looking at somewhere that it's like, maybe it's only a 25% chance, but like, I'm watching it.
I'm always curious about Jim Nill this time of year. One, because he's not shy about the blockbuster, as we saw with Mikko Rantanen, and no one loves him, a depth defenseman, more than Jim Nill. So I think it could be a combination of both. And listen, the expectation from ownership is get to the Stanley Cup. Right, and when that's your mandate, and they have the Tyler Seguin money to play with now, if we're looking for a team to make the massive splash here, like, could you see Jim Nill do all of his shopping in Calgary? Like, you get your basket and you go to one grocery store. Like, Jim Nill could get what he wants from one team. Does he do it, or does it get spread out? And man, the Robertson question. Listen, I know I got a lot of heat last summer. I think it was when I put it out there that don't be surprised if, they can't come to an agreement with Jason Robertson, and he might hit the market. And here we are. We've gone through the whole season worth of negotiations between Jason Robertson and the Dallas Stars, and still there's no deal. Now, I don't know that and I don't think that he gets moved to trade deadline. Like, who knows? Like, I think it sounds like he wants something closer to Rantanen money, and I think that the Dallas Stars are closer to the 10 million number. But if the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup, and he's the Conn Smythe Trophy winner, which he could be, he probably gets that contract. So I still do think that they keep him. After that, though, if they don't win the Stanley Cup, I think all bets are off. But the Robertson story is still hot, and I think the Dallas Stars are too. This is another go-for-it year for Dallas, and I wonder who acts first in the Central, because all three are going to make moves. Colorado's going to make a move. Minnesota's going to make a move. Dallas is going to make a move. Who goes first, guys? And the other one that's interesting here is the Buffalo Sabres. Going back to December, they are the best team in the entire NHL. Do they, I think they're going to hang on to Tuck and do our own rental, et cetera, et cetera. They just want to get to the playoffs to get the number 14 out of the history of the organization. Do they add anything? Or do they say, you know what, if you're Jarmo Kekalainen, do you say, you know what, everything here is going so perfectly, I don't want to move it an inch to the left or an inch to the right? Or do they say, we could still use some depth D, left shot? Maybe do they look at Mario Ferraro of the Buffalo Sabres? That's the one that I'm interested in there. Depth D. He might be San Jose's best defenseman. Or maybe San Jose just tries to re-sign him, but that's what I'd be looking at for the Buffalo Sabres come Friday.
Yeah, I think you definitely want to send the room a bit of a message, but if you're Jarmo, like, this year would almost be like found money. You walked into this situation, instantly started playing like the best team in the NHL, and now you're gonna get the credit for ending the playoff drought. All you did was kick your feet up and say yes, sign a contract, say yes to a job. It's wild.
And every win they get, and every playoff that they get into, and every round they win in the playoffs, Kevin Adams gets closer to getting a job because that's still his team.
Yes, 100%.
That's a great point. All right, Jeff, you're back on with the sheet at the top of the hour. Appreciate you popping on.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
All right, couple of inbox questions. #AskDFO. We got one earlier that wanted to know, is Connor Murphy playing tonight for the Oilers? The answer, I believe, is no. He's expected to land in Edmonton a little bit later on today, but he will not be ready in time for the game tonight. J-Rock with one. He says, will the lack of double retention hurt this year's trade deadline? And I think that is a very good point to bring up. J-Rock, if you remember in years past, you could trade a guy to a middle party. They could keep 50% or 25% of his contract, and it was a way for contenders to get guys for very, very cheap. That loophole has been closed. I think you can look at yesterday with the Edmonton Oilers acquiring Connor Murphy. If there was the double retention rule, the Oilers absolutely would have paid a third-party team to keep another 50% of Connor Murphy and get him all the way down to $1.1 million. They couldn't do that. They had to waive Mangiapane. Now they're sitting here with only $200,000 in extra money. Like, again, I think we'll see a pickup in terms of moves closer to the deadline. I think the quiet period right now is more of a result of just so many teams don't truly know what they're doing yet. But that double retention loophole getting closed, Huts, like, I think it kills the rental market a lot, honestly.
It does, yeah. And again, it's that risk reward, right? Especially when you're adding guys with term on deals and where they're at. And unless it is someone you see in your future really fitting in your system, because majority of these teams that are contenders are already kind of at the cap, right? They don't have a ton of money to work with and to expand for their future. So the double retention rule being gone changes that dynamic. And that's why there's cap specialists and assistant GMs. And it's a whole community of staff that work into this, because you have to have the foresight to understand what moves right now affect your future as well.
Yeah. Again, like, I look at a guy in Columbus, and I mean, granted, Columbus, I misspoke earlier. It was a 4-0 lead they almost blew yesterday to the New York Rangers, and they find a way to win. But like, if they decided to sell, they have a guy like Charlie Coyle. I'm sure lots of contenders would love to have Charlie Coyle as their third line center, but he can only be retained down to like $2.8 million or $2.65 million. Like, even that number for teams looking for a 3C might be too high. If Columbus in past lives would have gotten that retained down to 1.3, they would have had a market for Charlie Coyle. So again, I just think the no double retention really does complicate things quite a bit. Let's get to our daily bets for Bet365. Download the app today, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. The Carolina Hurricanes could not beat the goddamn Seattle Kraken for me last night. And that's karma for me being a Kraken hater, is that they would ruin the last leg of what would have been a plus 1,000 parlay. I didn't hit. Pat, were you even close?
Yeah, actually, I had most of them. I kind of mentioned doing every single game. The only one I would have missed would have been that Seattle game, unfortunately. So, yeah, Seattle just stomping all over us.
And 2 unders for Hutton. Didn't hit.
Well, so the Detroit-Nashville game was 6. That doesn't count as a push? Come on, boys. Like, give me some sort of, like, at least push this for me here. Because Carolina-Seattle was the graphics. Like, and it's under. What's the ruling on that? Like, can I throw a flag here? I want to challenge. I got a red flag. Challenge flag.
All right. Detroit, Nashville, Carolina, Seattle. I think you get a partial win for this. You get like half of your units pay out. I think it works as like whatever just a normal under would be. So like minus 110. So I'm going to say Hutz deserves some love here. I think, Pat, we might need to like launch a full scale audit of the way this thing's been ran this year. Although I probably don't need the confirmation that I've been terrible. Let's go to tonight's picks then. Here's what I got fired up for this evening, boys. Kicking things off, I got I got over 6 in Colorado and Anaheim. Colorado second of back-to-back, so I think the offense should be flowing a little bit. Anaheim, they've been struggling to keep pucks out and scoring a ton. Love the over there. Dallas puck line, Edmonton puck line, plus 1570. If you're new to the show, I'm taking these kind of swings for the rest of the season. That's just the life and the hole I've dug myself. Pat, what do you got?
I really like the plus 1570. That's just so funny. My bet under 6 for the Tampa Minnesota game. I really like, Vasilevsky and Gustafsson going head to head. Assuming those are the two right now on Daily Faceoff starting goalies. I've also got Nashville money line over the Blue Jackets. They played yesterday, almost blew a lead to the Rangers, so they're probably going to be tired. Nashville's actually been playing really well lately as well. So at plus 340 for those two, I don't mind it. What about you, Hutz?
Well, I'm going to go the other way, buddy, because they both played yesterday. Nashville had the early matinee game. Saros was second star of the game. They lost 4-2, and now you're going to see Eustace Onanen in Columbus, and Columbus starts Jeff Greaves. I think they're just going to be urgent today because of that blown lead. I'm hoping. And then I have the over in the Ottawa-Edmonton game because Jari can't make a save. Ottawa can't keep the puck out of their net, so let's see some goals here. Plus 404, get me right back into the green.
If I ever get back in the green this season, I don't even know what I would do. It would be a miracle. It'd be the comeback story of all comeback stories. Let's wrap up the show with our garbage time for the day. Vincent Trocheck, who continues to play games for the New York Rangers, despite the fact that it's starting to feel like a foregone conclusion that he's going to get traded. But he had a great quote yesterday saying he talked to his kids about the possibility of being traded to prepare them, and his son, who is 7, said, well, I'll stay because, I have a hockey team here. I didn't get traded. And I mean, it's hard to argue with that logic, right? Dad says, listen, I might have to go to Minnesota after when they trade me. And his kid's like, whoa. My hockey team is staying in New York. I thought this was a good one, but a good one because it's funny, but also a good one, a reminder of the time of year. Like, these are guys who are getting prepared to potentially leave their families for the next few months.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway is the human factor that goes into it. And it's funny being on the other side of it now where I'm on media and I'm working this and I'm talking about potentially guys going every which way. It affects so much more than just the player, the family, the situation of where they're in. But what a cute quote from his kid, understanding that, well, Dad, I got my team. It's where it's at. It's so sincere and so positive. So that's great. And for the Trocheck family, obviously, an anxious/exciting time as you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of professional sports, but it affects everybody in the family.
All right, that is a wrap on today's edition of the show. Big shout out to Jeff Merrick, who he's given me something to talk about later on today on Oilers Nation, dropping a little Darnell Nurse in the middle of his hit. But everybody in the YouTube, great stuff. If you're new, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button for us. We'll be back tomorrow at noon Eastern. We'll chat with you then. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.